In 1786, south of Mount Tai in the Shandong province, an amateur archaeologist, Huan Yi, stumbled across the hidden shrines of the Wu family. This discovery would produce my object of desire, an ink rubbing of the east panel from the first shrine created in 168 AD. This object provides a glimpse into Han society and its culture. Spanning over 4 centuries, the Han period is considered a golden age in Chinese history, during which Confucianism was sponsored by the empire. Born into chaos in 551 BC, Confucius sought to discover a way to return to the ancient ideas of order.
His ideas are underpinned by his belief that solutions to contemporary problems lie in a close study of what had gone before. Confucius found in the book of history the ideal model society where a social and political harmony prevailed. It was evident that social order was possible by reviving the past.
The worship and appeasement of ancestors was an important element of Chinese beliefs. It was hoped that if the ancestors were given the proper respect, the dead would intercede with the spirits on behalf of the living. Tombs and their contents provided a means for this worship, as they housed the spirit of the deceased and provided a space for offerings to honour them. Thus, this panel, which was designed to serve the Wu family in their community's ancestor worship, expresses 3 major themes: filial piety, good omens, and the journey of the soul of the dead to its new celestial abode. The ritual significance of the shrines provides the key for understanding the symbolic structure of their decoration. The central belief of Chinese funerary practice and ancestor worship was that humans had 2 souls that outlasted the body: the Po, which remained earthbound, and the Hun, which would ascend to exist in the celestial realm. The living sought to ease this transition and guide them to their separate destinations. This belief transformed the structure of the shrines into representations of the universe. This symbolic structure is described in an inscription on an Eastern Han funeral shrine, which reads,
"Above there are clouds and immortals, below personages of official piety, excelled at virtue and benevolence."
The celestial realm, the Hun's abode, lay in the north, and the Po's in the south. This oppositional structure expresses the theory of yin, yang, wu, hu, xing.
In all things there must be correlates. Thus, if there is the upper, there must be the lower.
According to this theory, and as we can see in our rubbing, the universe is divided into 2 spheres. In the centre is the human world, surrounded by the lands of the immortals and by heaven above. This celestial realm is not an inanimate entity. It possesses purpose and intelligence and is depicted as concrete signs or omens, the bird and horse-headed clouds and the immortals that ride them that we see scrolling across the first register. A further motivation for the commission of these shrines, and according to Jean James, the basis of the Wu Shrine's iconographic program was the concept of filial piety, the Confucian and Chinese Buddhist virtue of respect for one's elders and ancestors. Thus, didactic narratives of filial piety, like My Object of Desire, are the most important scenes and therefore have been placed in the centre of the back wall. The 3rd register depicts 2 models of filial piety. Jing Ku was a filial son who fed his elderly father when he became unable to eat on his own. To the right is Ding Lang, who has made a statue of his mother and served her as if she were real. This moralizing theme was central to the viewing experience of the shrine.
When one sees pictures representing men of high principles, one cannot but forget one's meals. By this we may realise that paintings serve as moral examples or as mirrors of conduct.
The virtues of these filial sons are confirmed by the auspicious omens above them. These plants and the immortals that tend them express a prevalent theory of Han Tiangying. They interpreted the manifestation of omens as responses to the actions of man. Also significant is how the artists have embodied these stories, ideas and beliefs. As the foremost scholar of the shrines, Wu Hong, notes,
"Forms were treated as words, and the artist was a rhetorician, and meaning was found in the twilight zone between a symbolic and representational art."
19th century studies of the formal qualities of these shrines have, in the words of Edward Said, produced an insensitive schematization of Chinese art. For example, one art historian sneered at their
rudimentary ideas of linear perspective, which indicates a lack of intelligent observation.
The 6 principles of Chinese classical art prove that their objectives were completely different from the West's and explain the various styles we see in our panel. The 3rd principle mandates artists to represent nature according to its form. The shrines artists achieved such naturalism in the representation of the horses. The 1st principle is that of spirit consonance, that art should engender a sense of life. It instructs artists to capture the essential quality of the object. This is achieved in the representation of the omens. Unaware of this, Western historians have explained their stylized representation as
ideal images and imagined ideas of what they remember or believed animals to look like.
However, the style of these omens is not the result of a momentary reaction. The plant's forms are not a record but a symbol of the idea of a plant, which embodied what they knew and felt about their essential nature. The ink rubbings have been the principal means for the dissemination of this important Chinese artifact into the West. Until the rediscovery of the shrines, the rubbings were the main source for their study. This had led scholars to neglect the stones. Just as our Western ideas have misled us, the rubbings have deceived us. Each rubbing is different as the stone's damage and dirt varies each impression. Furthermore, the rubbings process allows for this knowledge to be manipulated, as the imprint can be lifted, repositioned, or applied to other engraved blocks and rubbed again. This rubbing together with the rest of the set and other Chinese squeezes were collected by Professor Hansford, who sold his collection to the Durham School of Oriental Studies in 1970. The only thing uniting these artifacts was their material and country of origin. Fortunately, recent scholarship has questioned the applicability of a Western perspective to the analysis of Chinese art. The socio-cultural approach of Luofu, Power and Wu Hong has placed them in a better position to see the Han ideas reflected in these artifacts. Maybe their approach will succeed in unravelling the secrets and tales of my object of desire.